This is wedding food from around the world, and the meaning hidden behind every dish. Across cultures, every dish tells a story of love, unity, and hope for the future. In France, traditional weddings often feature a dessert that is very different from the modern layered cake. Instead, a croque-monsieur is used, which is a tower made from small cream-filled pastries that are carefully stacked and held together with caramel. What makes this dessert unique is the level of precision required to assemble it, because each piece needs to be placed in a way that supports the structure as a whole. This dessert dates back to classical French culinary traditions, where presentation and technique were highly valued, especially in formal and celebratory meals. The croque-monsieur is not just visually impressive, but also symbolic, as it represents balance and structure. If one part is unstable, the entire tower can collapse, which reflects the idea that strong foundations are essential. Another interesting detail is that it is not sliced like a typical cake. Instead, guests break pieces off, turning the act of eating into a shared and interactive experience rather than a formal serving. In Italy, one of the most important wedding traditions involves something much smaller and simpler than a cake. Confetti, or sugared almonds, have been part of Italian weddings for centuries, and are usually given to guests in small packages. What makes them unique is not just their appearance, but the meaning behind them. They are always given in odd numbers, most commonly 5, because each number represents a specific wish for the couple, including health, wealth, happiness, fertility, and long life. What makes this tradition particularly meaningful is the contrast in flavor. The almond itself has a naturally bitter taste, while the sugar coating adds sweetness. This combination is intentional, and represents the reality of marriage, which includes both challenging and joyful moments. Rather than presenting an idealized version of life, this tradition acknowledges balance. Because of this deeper meaning, confetti is not just consumed during the event, but often taken home by guests as a reminder of the occasion. In Greece, a similar tradition exists with koufeta, which are also sugared almonds, but they play a more direct role in the ceremony itself. These almonds are often placed on ceremonial trays, or incorporated into specific parts of the wedding ritual, making them more than just a treat. Like in Italy, they are always presented in odd numbers, based on the idea that odd numbers cannot be divided evenly, symbolizing the unity of the couple. This tradition has been preserved over generations, and remains a recognizable part of Greek weddings even today. What makes it unique is how something so small and simple can carry such a strong symbolic meaning. It reinforces the idea that marriage is not about two separate individuals continuing independently, but about forming a single unified partnership. In the United Kingdom, wedding desserts take on a very different form, both in texture and in meaning. The traditional fruitcake is dense, rich, and filled with dried fruits, often soaked in alcohol to enhance both flavor and preservation. What makes this cake unique is its durability, as it can be stored for long periods of time without losing its structure. Historically, this quality made it suitable for extended celebrations, and even for saving portions for future milestones. This reflects a broader perspective on marriage as something long-term and enduring. The cake is not designed to be light or temporary, but to last, which aligns with the idea of stability and continuity. In this way, the fruitcake becomes more than just a dessert. It becomes a representation of resilience and the ability to endure over time. In Norway and Denmark, wedding desserts are constructed in a way that emphasizes structure and simplicity. Kransekake is made from almond-based dough shaped into concentric rings, which are then stacked to form a tall, layered tower. At first glance, the ingredients are relatively simple, but the visual impact comes from the arrangement. What makes this cake unique is how each ring depends on the others for support, creating a stable structure through balance. This reflects a symbolic idea of cooperation and interdependence. The tradition of kransekake dates back centuries in Scandinavian culture, and is still commonly used in celebrations today. Another distinctive aspect is how it is served. Instead of being sliced neatly, guests often pull pieces apart by hand, which creates a more informal and shared experience, reinforcing the social nature of the event. In Germany, wedding desserts often emphasize time and craftsmanship. Baumkuchen is created by applying thin layers of batter one at a time, allowing each layer to bake before adding the next. This process is repeated many times, resulting in a cake with visible rings when sliced. These rings resemble the growth rings of a tree, which is where the cake gets its name. This visual similarity is not accidental, as it represents growth over time. The process of making Baumkuchen is slow and requires patience, which is why it has become associated with significant occasions. It reflects the idea that meaningful things are built gradually rather than instantly. In the context of a wedding, this becomes a powerful symbol of how a relationship develops, layer by layer, over time. In Chinese wedding banquets, one dish appears very consistently, which is a whole fish served intact, including the head and tail. What makes this unique is not just the preparation, but the symbolism behind it. In the Chinese language, the word for fish sounds similar to the word for abundance, which makes it a natural symbol for prosperity. Serving the fish whole adds another layer of meaning as it represents completeness and unity. Nothing is removed and nothing is missing. This reflects the idea of a complete and harmonious life. Because of this, the dish is prepared with intention and placed as part of the overall message of the celebration rather than as a casual menu item. In Japan, a fish known as tai or sea bream is often associated with celebrations, including weddings. What makes it unique is not only its appearance, but also its connection to language. The word tai appears in metatai, which means joyful or auspicious, creating a linguistic association with happiness and good fortune. This type of symbolism is common in Japanese culture, where meaning is often conveyed subtly rather than directly. The fish itself is typically presented whole, emphasizing form and balance. Its use in weddings reflects a quiet and refined way of expressing positive wishes without relying on large or extravagant gestures. In Korean weddings, one of the most meaningful traditions takes place during a ritual known as pai bake. During this ceremony, dates and chestnuts are presented in a very specific way. These items are not served as casual food, but as symbolic elements that represent the future of the couple. The number of dates and chestnuts is believed to correspond to the number of children the couple may have. This creates a visual and interactive form of symbolism that connects directly to family and continuation. The ritual itself has been preserved over time, even as other aspects of weddings have modernized, showing how deeply rooted these traditions are. In Vietnam, weddings include a dessert known as ban phu thi, which carries a strong symbolic meaning related to marriage itself. The name refers to husband and wife, and the structure of the dessert reflects this idea of unity. It is often soft, slightly chewy, and carefully wrapped, emphasizing both protection and connection. Traditionally, this dessert is part of the exchange between families, making it more than just a food item. It represents the joining of two families as well as two individuals. Its simplicity is part of its meaning, as it focuses on the essential idea of partnership rather than elaborate presentation. In Turkey, weddings are not just formal events, they are social gatherings that can last for hours, sometimes even days. And food plays a central role in how people connect during these celebrations. One dessert that appears very consistently is baklava, a layered pastry made with thin sheets of dough, filled with nuts and carefully soaked in syrup. What makes baklava truly unique is not only its sweetness, but the precision required to make it properly. Because each layer has to be thin enough, balanced enough, and baked just right, so that the final result is rich without becoming overwhelming. Historically, baklava was considered a luxury dessert in the Ottoman Empire, often prepared in royal kitchens and reserved for important occasions. Serving baklava at a wedding is not simply about offering dessert, but about showing generosity and respect to guests by giving them something that requires time, skill, and attention to detail. In that sense, baklava represents effort, care, and the idea that something meaningful is always built layer by layer. In India, weddings are known for their scale and energy, often involving multiple ceremonies, large gatherings, and an incredible variety of food. Among all these dishes, gulab jamun remains one of the most recognizable and consistently present desserts. It is made from milk solids that are shaped into small balls, fried gently, and then soaked in a fragrant sugar syrup. What makes gulab jamun stand out is the texture. When prepared correctly, it becomes extremely soft and absorbs the syrup completely, creating a dessert that almost melts in the mouth. This texture is not accidental, but the result of careful control during cooking. In Indian culture, sweetness is strongly associated with happiness, celebration, and positive beginnings. That is why desserts like gulab jamun are not just served at the end of a meal, but are often offered as a way of expressing joy and good wishes. At a wedding, this becomes even more meaningful, as the sweetness symbolically reflects the hope that the couple's life together will be filled with happiness. In Brazil, wedding celebrations often feel more relaxed and personal compared to more formal traditions, and this is reflected in the desserts that are served. Brigadeiro is one of the most common sweets you will find, made from condensed milk, cocoa powder, and butter, then rolled into small bite-sized pieces and covered with chocolate sprinkles. What makes Brigadeiro unique is its simplicity and accessibility. It does not rely on complex techniques or elaborate presentation, yet it remains one of the most loved desserts in the country. Because it is easy to prepare in large quantities, it fits perfectly into social gatherings where sharing is important. At weddings, Brigadeiro represents a more modern and informal approach to celebration where the focus is not on impressing guests with complexity, but on creating a warm and enjoyable atmosphere. It shows that sometimes the most meaningful experiences come from things that feel familiar and easy to share. In the United States, wedding traditions are more flexible and influenced by modern culture, but one element has remained consistent over time, which is the wedding cake. Typically designed as a tall, layered cake, it often serves as the visual centerpiece of the reception. However, the importance of the wedding cake is not only in how it looks, but in the moment that surrounds it. The act of cutting the cake together has become a symbolic gesture that represents the couple's first shared action as partners. This moment is often photographed and watched by guests, turning a simple action into a meaningful ritual. Over time, this tradition has evolved, but its core idea remains the same. It represents unity, cooperation, and the beginning of a shared life. Even though the design and flavor of the cake may change depending on personal preference, the meaning behind the act of cutting it together continues to hold its place in modern weddings. In parts of Eastern Europe, weddings still include a traditional bread known as korovai, which carries deep cultural significance. Unlike a simple loaf of bread, korovai is carefully decorated with patterns and symbols, often shaped to represent elements such as unity, prosperity, and harmony. Traditionally, it is made by women who are believed to have strong and happy marriages, based on the idea that their positive energy and experience will transfer into the bread. This belief may sound symbolic, but it reflects how deeply food is connected to culture and values. Bread, in many societies, represents life and stability, so including it in a wedding ceremony is a way of offering a blessing for a stable and prosperous future. In this context, corvée is not just something to eat, but something that carries meaning from one generation to the next. In Mexico, one of the most popular wedding desserts is tres leches cake, a sponge cake soaked in 3 types of milk. What makes this dessert unique is its ability to absorb a large amount of liquid while still maintaining its structure. Most cakes would collapse under similar conditions, but tres leches remain soft, stable, and rich at the same time. This combination of softness and strength makes it particularly interesting. It creates a texture that feels indulgent, but still balanced. Beyond its physical qualities, the cake is also widely loved and familiar, making it a natural choice for celebrations. At weddings, it represents comfort and enjoyment, showing that food does not always need to be complex to be meaningful as long as it connects with people on a personal level. In the Philippines, weddings are known for being lively and communal, and food plays a central role in bringing people together. One of the most recognizable dishes is lechon, which is a whole roasted pig prepared over several hours. What makes lechon unique is both its scale and its presence. It is often placed at the center of the celebration, making it a visual focal point as well as a shared meal. Historically, preparing lechon required significant effort and resources, which made it a symbol of abundance and generosity. Serving it at a wedding reflects the importance of the event and the desire to share that moment with a large group of people. In Morocco, wedding food often highlights contrast, and pastilla is a clear example of this approach. It is a layered pastry that combines savory and sweet elements, often including spiced meat along with sugar and cinnamon on top. This combination may seem unusual at first, but it reflects a deeper idea about balance. Life is not defined by a single flavor, and neither is marriage. The dish itself has historical roots in Moroccan cuisine and is typically reserved for special occasions, which reinforces its connection to celebration. By combining contrasting elements into a single dish, pastilla becomes a representation of complexity and harmony at the same time. In Argentina, many wedding desserts are built around dulce de leche, a rich, caramel-like spread that is deeply embedded in the country's food culture. It is used in cakes, pastries, and fillings, often forming the core flavor of the dessert rather than just an addition. What makes dulce de leche special is its familiarity. It is something that people grow up with, something that feels personal and comforting. Including it in a wedding is not about introducing something new, but about bringing something meaningful into an important moment. It reflects the idea that while weddings mark the beginning of a new chapter, they are also connected to the past, to memories, and to identity. In this way, the dessert becomes more than just food, it becomes part of the story being shared. In Sweden, wedding celebrations often reflect a sense of balance and simplicity, and this is clearly seen in the choice of desserts. Princess cake is a popular option, made from layers of soft sponge cake, cream, and jam, covered with a smooth layer of marzipan. What makes this cake distinctive is its balanced flavor. It is sweet, but not overwhelming, and visually elegant without being excessive. This reflects a broader cultural approach where celebration is expressed through subtlety rather than extravagance. Instead of focusing on size or decoration alone, the emphasis is placed on harmony and proportion. At weddings, this creates an atmosphere that feels refined and calm, showing that elegance does not always come from complexity, but often from restraint and thoughtful design. In the end, wedding food is never just about what's on the table. It carries meaning, tradition, and the hopes people have for their future. And that's why, no matter where you are in the world, it always feels like more than just a meal.